All right, hello, here we are. It is today the 6th of September 2000 and... Oh, sorry, that's just me trying to arrange my frame a bit better. The 6th of September 2023. This is Chat with Matt. It's 9 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. Regular New Zealand time for doing Chat with Matt weekly. Here we are. Talk about whatever you guys want to know about or are interested in. It's not about knowing. It's not that I'm going to impart information that's important to know. It's that we might have a chat that might stimulate some inquiry in your life, whether that be intellectual or energetic. So yeah, I was just looking here on my notification. I've just got some of Doug's cryptic comments to go on. Solar storm to recharge our batteries, rainbow everywhere, never-ending compost, the garden's growing on steroids, veggie patch, nailed by army worms. Yeah, mucha hungry for Gaia's. Oh, I don't know. I'm not going to keep trying to read it. But yeah, it's that time for those of us in the Southern Hemisphere. It's spring, the start of spring. It's a great time to be composting. We've, on returning home, have basically unwrapped a big pile of compost that we made when we moved in, when we ripped up all of the grass from this property, or most of the grass, and composted it all down with various other bits and bobs, and yeah, we've judiciously used that compost to refresh our gardens and create some new ones, because when I'm moving the fence, which I'm nearly finished doing, we've created a new bigger garden bed, which is awesome, right? Because we can grow more stuff, grow more food, which is good. It's good. I think it's the way forward for all of us to start becoming a little bit more self-sufficient. Of course, aiming for self-sufficiency is a big ask for anyone, but we can definitely grow more food and grow much more nutritious food available for us to eat on site. And so why not? And that's what we're doing. That's what a lot of people are doing. I know Doug is very, very passionate about permaculture and that whole movement. And so, yeah, we're doing that as well. I'm really, really looking forward to when I go to Costa Rica in a couple of months, because where we're holding our retreat, which is called Rancho Mago, they are 85 to 90% self-sufficient, and that's in total, right? Producing their own leathers, producing all of their own products, right? Cleaning products, the lot. Their own timber, building materials, 85 to 90% self-sufficient. 400 acres of cloud rainforest under Arenal, I think that's how you say it, volcano in Costa Rica, highlands, midlands, whatever. So yes, I'm looking forward to being inspired by their setup there, and they very much use permaculture principles and techniques in their agriculture. And I guess you would also call it regenerative farming practices as well, because they're using a lot of livestock as well, producing their own dairy products, producing their own meats. Not everyone's vegetarian, of course. Hey, Sister Susie and Jill, welcome. So yes, I'm looking forward to that, because I've been very, very passionate about self-sufficiency, natural building, living closer to nature for a long time. And I know my days will come when I get to settle into that a little bit more consistently. At the moment, I'm called to travel and to visit places and to both ground in the light and receive downloads, etc., from different parts of the world, as well as satisfy some curiosity and do all of that good stuff and inspire other people to travel and get out of their comfort zone and to experience other cultures, to broaden one's mind, to open one's mind to how other people are living in other parts of the world, and impart and commune with such people, because it's important, I feel, necessary for many of us to collect this wisdom together by visiting people and interacting energetically more than just intellectually. Anywho's, so there's reasons and seasons, of course, for everything, and we all move through various stages of life where we get to do different things. That is how life unfolds generally. So, yes, as you said, we'll be really interested to hear your thoughts relayed from Costa Rica on the way of life there. Yeah, definitely. And of course, well, no, I'm not actually, I think I'm prohibited from talking about that. Maurice always gets upset that I let the cats out of the bag. But anyway, I'm going to do it anyway. Even though I know I'm not supposed to, that's me. Told not to. But anyway, yeah, we're going to Galapagos Island before we go to Costa Rica, which is very exciting. Very much a bucket list thing, and looking potentially for a retreat venue there for next year, if we find it. It's going to be a bit of a tall ask, but we'll see how we go. So, my friends, how can I help you? What's going on? Who's in charge here? How was that full moon? Bloody hell. That knocked me on my ass for quite a few days, even in the aftermath of the full moon. Tony's always telling me off too. Yeah, it's good to be non-compliant. I think that is an important quality to foster for all of us, to do what we feel to do rather than what other people think that we should do, or even what other people request us to do. I think it's good to be considerate of other people, of course, but at the end of the day, do we sacrifice our own desires and our own feeling of what's for the best in order to keep other people happy? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I think it's all we have to weigh up each occasion on its merits and not get set into being the good person, right? Because this good person persona can really lead to our detriment if we overly emphasize the rightness of being good, the rightness of being compliant, because that can then get used against us, as it has done in the past and as it probably is being done to us right now, in many ways, just living in our society and complying with many of the rules that we live under here. They're not set up for our best good, and they're not really set up for society as a whole's best good. They're set up for a small minority of people's best good, etc., etc. But most of us don't really have the easy pathway to be non-compliant in bigger ways. Yeah, sure, we can choose not to wear our mask when they're telling us to wear our mask, etc. But how many of us have opted out of the system? How many of us are not paying our taxes? How many of us are really bucking the system and helping to unravel this whole shit show of a system that is basically a rort? Where are our taxes going? Most of our taxes are not being spent back in the community. Most of them are not building infrastructure. Most of them are getting funneled elsewhere, right, to line the pockets of very rich people, building war machines, etc., right, and all of the bureaucracy and funding all of this BS that goes on, right, the endless creation of policy and whatnot that's so far from actually solving the real problems of our society. It's ridiculous. But anywho, this is where we're at. And the point is, how do we effectively affect change? How do we effectively affect change? The one's with an E and one's with an A, I know that. I know some English. I know some grammar. Effectively affect change, I think. But anyway, that's the point. It's not easy, right? It's not easy to find out and to actually have the fortitude and be willing to invest the time in making bigger changes. But I think what will happen is some brave people, of course, some very committed people always go first in every area. And then they, share their knowledge and their wisdom and their inspiration, and others of us can follow. Some of us forge new grounds in some ways, and others forge new grounds in other ways. We can't, I guess, be able to do everything ourselves. That's the thing. That's exactly the question, Susie. How to stop complying in a bigger and bigger way, right? We're all making inroads into it. And I guess that's how it will happen. But I guess the answer to the question is it's intentional, right? We set the intention that we're going to do what's best for us and what's best for our society, our community, and then we work from there. But we can't just go most of us can't go the whole hog all at once. We don't have the capacity to opt out of the whole system, right? To go down that path of really, removing our identity from the registars and all of the rest of it, right? Reclaiming our sovereignty in a legal way, taking ourselves out of the tax system, out of the police system, out of everything, right? Which is, non-compliance in the bigger, broader picture, and living as a free person on this planet. Those are lofty goals. It's much the same as we were talking, was reading Doug's comments. How do we move towards, the lofty goals of self-sufficiency and living a real down-to-earth permaculture life? For most of us, that dream is too big to achieve all at once, right? So we make small inroads towards it. Some people, of course, get more enthusiastic and go more deeper into it, and others of us just bite off chunks of it, right? And create, plant more fruit trees and plant more veggies, etc., right? So the point is, I think, is not to get down on ourselves because we can't do everything all at once, but is to hold an intent that we're just going to take steps towards it, right? That's right. So you said, I guess everything happens at the right time in the right way for each of us. Exactly. What's important is that we start holding an intent and we start being more and more aware of what compliance is and how it's being used against us so that we can make conscious choice when choices come up, right? When we get the option to do something, we can more adequately, more deeply feel into what are the pros and cons of this particular choice, right? With what someone's asking us to do. Do we comply with it? How much do we comply with it, right? To what degree? Because it's not yes or no, do we comply or not? It's to what degree do we comply? Because we're all living here, we're all living in a community. And of course, some of the rules in community are useful rules. Some of the road rules are damn handy, they work. To a degree, they keep a degree of efficiency on the roads and safety on the roads, right? If we all agree not to drive too fast, that's a good thing. If we all agree to give way to the right, and that certain roads have right of way and others have to give way, then that makes it easier. Because if we were to live in complete anarchy on the roads, at least, that would be potentially stressful. So, but to what degree are some of these rules being used to overly control us and then to police us, and to, basically harvest revenue from us and create stress. When you worry that if your speed's 5 kilometers over the limit because there's speed cameras everywhere that like to ping you and then charge you $30 or whatever it is for being, minor speeding offence, etc., etc. Jill said, hi Matt, had a demo of how depleted my energies are right now. Awoke to no electric, and when I went hunting the fuse... When I went hunting the fuse box, meters, etc., I found a horrible smell of gas in the garage. So emergency call out to check it over, and it seems it was my camping gear. Mega embarrassment, but electric keeps cutting out, tripping off. So I've asked the supply company for all the smart meters to be ripped out for personal health reasons, and amazingly they have agreed. Then I should be able to check what is faulty. Have inherited an induction hob cooker and have had to spend mega on new pots and pans to work on it. I've had a non-Wi-Fi landline installed, my fully non-compliant. and fully non-complying to norms as much as possible. Yeah, all choices we get to make, right? All choices we get to make. And what's important is that we're making these choices, in my opinion, that we're making these choices from a space of love and expanded mentality, right? What we feel purposeful about, what we feel inspired by, what we feel excited by, rather than thinking we have to do all these things because everything else is bad, wrong, and dangerous. Because if we're reacting to the bad, wrong, and dangerous, we're just creating more stress and contraction in our life. If we're responding to opportunities to expand into a more joyful state of freedom, then that's really good for us because we feel really purposeful in doing it. And it's invigorating for our life force on the planet. It all comes down to whether we're operating from love or fear, whether we're operating from abundance or lack. Those are fundamental choices we all have, and those are the choices we need to really reflect on when it comes to compliance. Are we choosing to comply from fear that if we keep complying, they're going to fuck us over, basically? Sorry for the French, but or are we choosing to not comply because we love freedom and we're choosing to exercise our right to be free? The non-compliance bit, the action looks the same. It's just, what was your fundamental reason for non-complying? That's it. And unfortunately, I see in this space a lot of people banging their drum around the fear-based narrative, which is not so expansive, in my opinion, not so helpful, in my opinion, and not so useful to actually affecting a great deal of change. Because any change that's made under fear is generally change that is limited in how far it can go, as opposed to love has boundless amounts of influence and momentum, to keep growing. So it's an interesting equation to really work into, and it's hard sometimes. It's hard to recognize whether I'm just being lazy and I choose to comply because I can't be bothered bucking the system right now, or am I choosing to comply with whatever's been requested of me because I feel that now's not the time to try and buck this thing. This is not actually going to serve me. This is going to create more hassle than it's actually worth to me personally in shining my light out in the community, in the world, in the cosmos. Because there is no end of potentials, as I was sort of describing earlier in the call, for things that we could start doing to be non-compliant and exercise our rights as sovereign peoples walking on this planet, as opposed to registered humans or whatever. I don't even know the terminology. Is a person actually the registered thing, and a free man or woman is the free thing? See, that just goes over my head a little bit, how they can use different terms for describing yourself imply whether you're in the system or not. I know a little bit, but not enough, obviously, to be effective in being out of the system. And to what degree do we need to be out of the system? To what degree can the system evolve without us all needing to break free of it? This is the question. I think some of us need to break free of it, definitely. And I think all of us need to break free to some degree. But I don't think it needs to be a total in either direction. I think what's going to happen is, more and more people are becoming more and more aware of how broken the system is. More and more people are going to opt out of the system to some form of degree, some total's a big word, and some to, greater degrees. And then, the systems are going to undergo fundamental changes as the basically the fundamental energy behind the systems are transformed. Anywho's, my friends, what else is going on in the world? As I was saying before I went down that path, the full moon was very, very powerful from where I was feeling it, and it certainly found that it was not so quick to wane in its effect. Susie said, I think awareness is a good starting point so that we can make best decisions on what is put in front of us. Exactly. That's exactly my intent, and the direction that Mantara is taking us this month is to develop deeper and deeper self-awareness. And with that self-awareness, to actually allow that awareness to shine out into the world around us, so we're recognizing how, with some external awareness, how things are affecting us. So awareness is awareness. You know, when you become self-aware, you also generally become aware of stuff in the external. When you become more aware of what's going on in the external, you start also to become more self-aware, because awareness is like a muscle. When it gets strong, it starts to work its way into everything that you start inquiring into. You know, the light of awareness shines everywhere. You can't just direct it in one specific spot for any particular length of time. It tends to leak. And then you have to be strong enough and determined enough, dedicated enough, devoted enough to yourself to actually be able to digest what you become aware of, because it's not always pleasant, is it? It's not pleasant when we become aware of some of the stuff that's going on in the external world. We can get very angry and we can get very depressed. And it's not pleasant when we become aware of what's really, you know, going on in our own energetic field, because again, we can become angry, frustrated, and depressed around, you know, how we've been functioning for so long and what created these, you know, programs in our field, these coping mechanisms, these pains and traumas, etc., that is, you know, creating great discomfort. Jill said, the TV broadband phone company tell me that by the end of 2025, I'll have no choice of non-compliance. I replied that if more people kick back and choose choice more, then maybe we won't be all forced down that road. The thing that set me off to fight back a bit right now was a letter from the electric company stating they will be remotely checking my energy usage, not monthly, but daily. No way, big brother, all checked through super fast Wi-Fi. Yeah. You know, and we can see, the interesting thing is, Jill, there's two sides to every coin. There's two sides to every coin. You could very easily argue that you know, if you monitor someone's electric use, then their electricity use is going to be less than if you give them open slather. And the problem is, we're trying to use more and more electricity in every country, because populations are generally growing in most countries. And now everyone's going down this fucking electric vehicle route. And so basically the problem that they have is the electric lines can't cope. Neither can the transformers and the switching gear, right? The big substations. So they're trying to get everyone to use electricity so they can control them, right? We understand that. And they're trying to do it without having to spend all of their money upgrading the system. So their plan, of course, is to try and get everyone to use electricity and to use less of it, right? Which basically means to reduce our power consumption, which basically means to live a smaller life. That's the intent, right? Yeah, they want us to have an electric car, and yes, they don't want us to be able to charge it. That way we can't drive very far, right? So, and if we can't drive very far, then they can keep us contained in certain areas, and that's another level of control. So it's a difficult equation, and for them. And the point is, what do we do about it? What do we do about it? The point, most of us don't need to use nearly as much electricity as we do. That's one point. But yeah, at the end of the day, bucking back about being monitored is not really the pointy end of the stick, I don't believe. I think pushing back about being limited is where it's at. For me, I've said for many years, I don't care who's watching me, because, you know, they'll only learn something. You know, I've never really worried about privacy terribly much. Yeah, Evie, cars are not great, and it's not really just how the electricity is generated, it's more the batteries and the amount of energy that goes into creating the car itself, which is the scammy part that most people don't understand. It's the same with wind generators, etc., right? They spend so much energy creating the generator. It takes most of the life of the wind generator to actually create enough electricity to actually pay for its own production. That's the crazy thing. There's lots of crazy things in the world, and it's all about making money for a very small number of people. The point is not to buy into the narratives, and it's also important not to get overly contracted around the narratives and to lose your peace in the propaganda, right? In the story, because if you start losing your peace and start getting angry about what they're doing and start fighting for the sake of fighting, it's you're actually adding to their energy. What you fight against, you feed, right? And what you feed will grow stronger. So non-compliance is about, really for me, it's about advocating for the outcome that you desire, not fighting against what you don't want. Because if you spend your time fighting against what you don't want, you will create what you don't want. The activist mindset is a very, very dangerous thing, and we see it time and time again where people create purpose around fighting injustice. And your purpose is so powerful that you will keep creating injustices to fight against. That's how it works. So it's very, I'd like to use the word important, to not get drawn into a fight, but to stay very committed to advocating for the outcomes that we desire. So it's, yeah, I get that too. Jill said it's not the monitoring per se, it's about being done through a house full of EMF signals buzzing 24 hours, that causes me to get sick. I think most of us have the capacity to evolve to cope with EMF. We're energetic beings, and we're energetic beings of divine proportion. I don't buy into terribly much the fact that these man-made things are more powerful than us. Yeah, of course, they catch us off guard, and in the short term, they do require a degree of evolution to expand out of, and it does make us feel unwell. I know when I go into highly energized places like hospitals, airports, etc., that I don't feel particularly comfortable there. But I know that over time, we've shown in history, we all got sick when they electrified the planet, right? When they started running wires down the streets, this was Spanish flu, right? We all got sick from the EMF coming off just normal electric lines, right? That were running down the streets to provide street lighting and electricity in houses. We've evolved past that. That doesn't make us sick anymore. But of course, we keep pushing the edge so that there's always something that's new at the moment. 5G radiation, smart meters, etc., using microwave links to upload their information to a satellite that's flying overhead, right? We're dealing with this at the moment, right? This whole coronavirus thing is part of this whole upgrade that humanity's going through as we evolve our biology to be able to cope with this degree of radiation. Of course, there's going to be casualties. Of course, there's certain biologies that are already compromised that won't cope with this new level, and they will get quote-unquote cancer because they're not adequately being giving themselves enough nutrition and enough rest and enough downtime and enough meditation, etc., to allow their bodies to upgrade. That's it. So yeah, so perfect. You have that awareness, Jill, so you get rid of your smart meter. Perfect. So, but you can let go of the big brother thing monitoring you. That's the point, right? You choose to get rid of the smart meter because it's the best thing for you to do, rather than use it as a drum to beat on about how bad and wrong Big Brother is. We know Big Brother is bad and wrong, by the way. I'm not saying they're good and right. But the point is to just be careful of what narratives you're using to justify the choices that you are making, because the more that you can stay in love, the better off you're going to be, and the more you get drawn into fear-based narratives and fight, the sicker you will find yourself becoming, because nothing creates illness like fear. That's the truth, right? Nothing creates stress like fear. When we are fearful, we are inherently stressed. When we're inherently stressed, we're inherently unwell. This is the simple truths. So the more that we can stay in love, the more that we can stay relaxed, the more that we can stay devoted and dedicated to living our best lives in choices that we make in moments of now, right? With awareness, with conscious choice, then the better off we're going to be. Yes, I am a great advocate for not complying, but it has to be non-compliance based on loving reasons rather than fear-based reasons. That's the point of view. I'm the same. I'm the same with, going down the permaculture route. I'm the same with becoming more self-reliant. I'm the same with everything, right? I think all of that stuff is good, but if you're doing it because you're scared, then it's not so great. If you're doing it because you are choosing to be an embodiment of freedom living on the planet and that feels very purposeful for you, then great, go for it, as much as you can. Fill your boots. Yeah. Jill said, I was pleasantly surprised how amenable electric company were, no fights at all, and yet the television company said you don't have a choice, or by 2025 you won't have a choice, etc., right? Which is all bullshit, because by 2025 everything will be different anyway, as everything is changing so quickly. Susie said, great views on things, Matt. I know this is probably not the place, but I would love to hear your thoughts on voting this election. Yeah, this is fucking difficult, isn't it? We don't seem to have a lot of choice, as per usual. And so there's two schools of thought, or there's three schools of thought here. Vote for someone you personally feel most aligned with, which some people would say is a wasted vote. Don't vote at all, which is basically withdrawing your desire to play in the system, right? Because if no one voted, there'd be no legitimacy in the government. Of course, people are always going to vote, but we're already in New Zealand, I think last election, out of 4 million odd registered voted, 1 million of them didn't. So we're already at 25% of people don't comply with voting here in New Zealand, because it's not legally required like it is in Australia. In Australia, you get fined if you don't vote. I think it's about $50, which obviously makes a lot of people choose to go to the vote and then register an invalid vote. But they register that they vote. Of course, your name's not on the voting ballot, and then they get in there and just write "fuck off" on the ballot paper and put it in the box. And I don't think they actually ever publish what the total of invalid votes are that goes through. That would be an interesting statistic. And I also see that this year there's a cooperation or a group of people running, I can't remember what it's called now, but they're basically, and I registered for it because I'm interested in their process, they're basically trying to ascertain which of the minor parties is the best. Yeah, which is an interesting idea, right? They've drafted a whole bunch of questions and they're basically surveying all the minor parties to work out which one is most aligned with values of freedom, etc., etc. And then they're going to publicize that to their members, so that rather than, I think what they showed is last election, people who voted for independence made up as much as the people who voted for the Green Party, which got 10 seats in government, right? Whereas the independents got none, because all of the same number of votes that got 10 seats for the Green Party was spread out through 15 different candidates, none of which got over the threshold to get in. So their intent is to, this time, corral as many votes as possible for at least one independent party, so that we actually get an independent voice in government, which, is a sensible idea, a little bit difficult, practically to orchestrate, because of course the thing with independence is everyone who votes for independence generally like their freedom to choose for themselves, which is the issue, right? Because we have so many different independents running that the votes always get diffused. So now, in order to not comply, we need to comply as a cooperative, as a community of people who look at a survey, or at least, go through this process, which, they're making a lot of, I wish I could remember the name of this group. Probably if I go looking through my emails, I'd find it. But the point is, they're making a lot of, in their communications, they're talking about being very open and honest and transparent with how they're going to choose which minor party they think is the best one. And, they're basically doing a big sort of analysis of all of these answers to questions that they've put out to the people to try and choose the one that best represents the sort of broadest range of freedom-loving people. Great idea. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. It will be interesting to see how it goes. I'm, at this stage, completely undecided which of the three options I'm going to take. One option I can assure you that I'm not taking is voting for any major party, including the Greens or First National or Winston Peters, because they're just in bed with everyone. Even, I know for a while people were talking Winston Peters is the only one who is questioning a lot of the mandates and a lot of the this and the that. But dear old Winston probably is just doing whatever he can to maintain some form of relevance, and he will flip as quick as anything when the time comes. I don't know. I can't. I'm not really qualified to speak, but I am always dubious about any career politician, to be honest, because anyone who's been in politics for long enough is unlikely to be that heart-based anymore. I could be wrong, though. I have been wrong before. It does happen. Margaret said, wildfire smoke negatively affecting the air quality here. Yeah, that's a bugger, isn't it? And they keep doing that game. This after flash floods yesterday due to rainfall. Oh, fuck. Crazy. Yeah, that's exactly what we have done in the past. Jill said one group in the UK said we should all vote but spoil the papers with I do not comply on it. The spoiled papers win the election, then it's all void. Yeah, but the problem is we don't count the votes, right? We, the people, don't count the votes, so they just lose all those. Oh, yeah, Susie wrote. I wasn't reading, sorry, as I was talking. Yes, it's interesting. Winston's going down the freedom vote route. Not sure if he's actually trustworthy or not. Yeah, exactly. As I mentioned, I don't. I would be very skeptical about trusting Winston with that. Susie said, the only thoughts I had were that this is often talked about the World Economic Forum and the control it has over our country. Yeah, and that's exactly the point. And what are they about to do? Spend $2 billion on a study of on renewable energy, how we can put $2 billion towards, not just a study, I think $2 billion towards New Zealand's requirements to become energy green, right? Which is a misnomer, because all of the yeah, I got it. Winston's talking about the World Economic Forum, which is a good thing, and I'm glad that he is talking about that and highlighting that. But again, whether he is doing it to gain popularity and just get into Parliament, or whether he's actually going to do something about it if he does get in again, that's the point that a little bit difficult. So, you know, I'm not totally against Winston. I'm just I'm not going to sit here and say we should all vote for Winston, because in my gut, in my heart, I don't feel that happy about making that decision. So yes, we have interesting choices, and what we do here in our upcoming elections is difficult. It's hard not to feel resigned to the fact we're all going to be disappointed with the outcome. No matter what happens, it's fair to say that it's not going to be enough to make any significant change from the top down. I've said that for a long time. The change that's going to happen, the change that needs to happen, is going to come from the bottom up, and it's not going to be won at the ballot box. It's going to be won by grassroots change on the ground, right? More and more of the population choosing not to comply with crazy BS that these puppets are mandating us and enticing us, or whatever, telling us to do. So there's going to have to be pushback from the population before real change occurs. Yeah, exactly. Susie said exactly. Probably all rigged anyway. Probably is. None of us really are sure that it's not. That's the point. It's very hard to ascertain that. I know our societies have championed, you know, democracy and fair polling forever, but at the end of the day, most of us are very unsure as to whether votes are being counted correctly. And, you know, the system's fucking gerrymandered and rigged anyway, so that it's very hard to upseat the major parties, right? Party politics are always going to be, as long as we have this system, are always going to be part of the outcome. Anywho, my friends, as per usual, I'm sure I've gone well over time. Yes, 45 minutes instead of half an hour. So I'll call it quits there. Wish you all the very best. Look after yourselves. The energy has been really powerful lately. I know a lot of us have been feeling very uncomfortable in our bodies on this planet over the last while. That's exactly right, Jill. Whoever we vote for, whoever gets into government, it's still going to be bottom-up change somehow. History shows it can be done. The Roman Empire fell eventually. That's exactly right. So this is the point. It's not to get too contracted around this whole political thing as if it's our only chance for change, because I don't believe it is. So therefore, don't worry too much about it and don't get down about it. That's the point, I think, because in general, the results of the polls tend to be pretty disappointing. I tend to just shake my head and think, how can one be living in a society where so many people are so still blind and wanting to, you know, play the whole game? But this is the point. It doesn't take that many of us to affect change. You know, 6% or so generally is all that's required to create a revolution. I'm sure we're getting close to that percentage by now. It's just a matter of us aligning our efforts in powerful ways. Michelle said, I really get down about what's going on. Yeah, stop that, Michelle. Just try your best. Really make it a strong intent not to overly populate your space with what's going on. You know, don't consume too much of what's going on, and do other things that are removed from this whole external world narrative, and find your joy in the micro right now, in your life, in things in your life. We have to let go. A lot of us have to protect ourselves from the macro story, because it is depressing and it is hard to keep our vibration high when we keep overly influencing ourselves with the depressing news that's coming from the external world. So getting down is not useful. It's not helpful. It's much more better use of your energy to stay joyful and naive, right? Blinkered from the world, right? There is no shame in being ignorant to what's going on. That whole mentality that was spread post Second World War or even pre-Second World War around the importance, the responsibility of citizens to be abreast of the news, right? Has been a massive conspiracy, in my opinion, to keep everyone in states of fear and compliance, right? The propagation of news services and the influence that we should all be watching the news has been one of their greatest victories in maintaining control over the population. So one of the best ways that we can not comply is to stop watching the television. Stop watching the news for a start, but stop watching television in general. Stop watching all of those ads. Stop watching most of the programming that's out there, right? Because it is all designed to program you, and it is all, most of it is created with an intent to influence you in a way that is not for your highest and best good. Let's just put it that way. 80% at least of the programming out there has intent to diminish your energy in one way or another and to influence how you are thinking in the world in ways that doesn't serve you. So stop watching it, right? Stop watching all of that stuff, Netflix, television. It's all the same, right? But especially mainstream news. But even stop watching a lot of conspiracy news, right? A lot of the alternate news, because it's not actually telling you anything that's useful to you, right? Live your best life, be a higher vibration, get out there in the world, grow a garden, interact with people in your life in meaningful ways, spread love, right? In the micro, in your small circle. That's how we're going to affect change. That's how the grassroots movement that's going to change our society is going to spread, through people interacting individually in intimate, caring and loving ways. And as long as we're tuned into the matrix through this whole broadcasting of programming, we're going to be in fear and we're not going to be able to interact with each other in loving ways. So it is really, in some ways it is that simple. In other ways, there's a lot to consider. Much love anyway, my friends. I'll get off this now. Bye for now. Bye-bye.